consider moving item D under new business to the first item and shifting all other items down.
Okay, and that's the quasi judicial hearing, right?
Yes.
Okay, I would agree with that. Do we have a motion to reorder the agenda? Good motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Passed unanimously. Okay. Swearing in of staff and applicants.
If you plan to give testimony this evening, please stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear and affirm the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, say yes. Thank you.
Okay. Proof of publication. I know I did see in our packet the publications. So we have both those publications. So in general, we're going to have some specific language we're going to go over for the quasi judicial, but with regards to the other items, is there any board disclosure, any ex parte communication that anybody needs to say?
No board disclosure from me.
Okay, so we will move into new business. Item D. This is PZB project number 25-014-00013, a major site plan, conditional use permit, and sustainable bonus incentive program request to construct a high-intensity cold storage use at 2209 7th Avenue North. The sustainable bonus incentive program request is for an additional 5 feet in height. The subject site is zoned Industrial Park of Commerce and has an industrial future land use designation. I believe the attorney, there's a line on here now for the attorney to say this is a quasi judicial hearing.
I don't have a copy of the script.
Okay.
All right. So this is a quasi judicial hearing. The hearing must be fair in 3 respects: form, substance, and appearance. So all board members must disclose if they have or reasonably believe to have demonstrated bias or prejudice for or against any party at the hearing, a direct or indirect monetary interest in the outcome of the hearing, a prejudgment of the issues prior to hearing the facts on the record that you'll hear tonight, or any ex parte communications, personal investigations, including conversations with city staff. So do any of you all have those types of disclosures to make?
None.
Thank you.
None.
None for me as well.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. So it's my understanding, in addition to the applicant, we have 3 affected parties who wish to be heard. I believe some of them might be on Zoom. I'm not sure if they were sworn in, so I don't know if we have to do that again. I do see a couple of people on Zoom. Are there any affected parties here that still need to be sworn in that did not get sworn in? Well, if you're going to testify, you need to be sworn in. Oh, you already did. Okay.
Yes, I already did.
Okay. You also already sworn in. Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, she's with Chen Moore, so that we do not have any affected parties that are on Zoom right now.
Okay. Understood.
Okay.
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 We can swear him in when he's if he's coming in the door, we'll take care of it now. So we don't have to circle back.
You swear and affirm the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Okay. So under the quasi judicial rules, we're going to hear from the city first, then the applicant, and then the affected parties. We're going to hold questions until after the presentations. And when you are called up and you speak, please state your name, your address, and the property you're speaking on behalf of. After the applicant speaks, we're going to hear from the affected parties in the following order: Peter DeTore, Robert Andino, and then Tom Cleary are the three names that I have for affected party.
Mr. Chair, pardon me. One of the affected parties, I believe, does have a request for a continuance. I just wanted to see if you wanted to hear that first.
Okay, is there an affected party who's looking for, has a request for continuance? Okay, why don't you come on up and make your request?
So, my name is Elise Crone, and my partner is Peter DeTore, and we are residents and homeowners in the neighborhood directly to the west of the proposition. Oh, 402 Elizabeth Road, Lake Worth 33461. I get so nervous. So I want to start off, like, I have all these remarks prepared if we don't get a continuance, but the reason I'm asking for this to be held in December instead of now is that the agenda packet wasn't up until October 31st, and we received the courtesy notice, and it said that you could email pzoning at Lake Worth Beach with questions, and that the packet was up, and it wasn't. And sorry, I get so I'm just so I did email that address, and I said, hey, you know, the packet isn't up and I have a lot of questions. And the person emailed back, I think it was Sherry Cole, and she said, I'm not a planner and all your answers are in the packet. And I'm like, okay. She's like, we hope the packet will be up Wednesday or Thursday. So the packet actually wasn't up until Friday. The minute it was there, I read through it, and then I ran down to planning and zoning and at 4:00, and they said, you know, no one can talk to you, and come back on Monday for the call-in hours or whatever. So so I did that, and I was told, I met with this young lady over here, and basically she was like, you know, you have more questions than I have time for, and I can make an appointment to talk to you about it, but not until Thursday, which is, you know, tomorrow after this happens. So I just feel like, you know, it was rushed getting this, and I did hear that it was rushed. I was told by the planner that it was a surprise to her that it was going to come today. So I just don't think it's fair to us. I know that there was a meeting, a neighborhood meeting, and unfortunately, nobody in my neighborhood got that letter. You know, maybe we missed it. I don't know. I don't usually miss things. But so it kind of came as a surprise, all of it. And I feel like I haven't had enough time to go through it and really understand even what the project is. I have been texting some with Wes Blackman and, you know, trying to gather things. But I need more time. My neighbors need more time. We have people in the hospital. We have people that we haven't even been able to reach yet in my neighborhood. So anyway, okay.
So, board, so you know, an affected party has a right to request a continuance. Under our code, if the continuance is requested, let me make sure I have the right place, for the purposes to address neighborhood concerns or new evidence, to hire legal counsel or professional services consultant, then, or if the affected party is unable to be represented at the hearing and they wish to be, that request for continuance is automatically permitted. This is for different purposes, so it's at your discretion.
Okay. And so that's not really covered. So the procedure for reviewing a continuance, does the applicant have a chance to respond to the request for continuance?
Yes.
Okay. Wes, you want to come up and let us know if you object to this or if you're okay with the continuance or where you guys are?
Good afternoon. Good evening. Wes Blackman, CWB Associates. I'm the planner for the project. And we did have a July meeting, a neighborhood meeting. We were instructed or encouraged to have it at the Hatch building. we sent out the notices. I have a presentation that shows documentation of returned letters and an email exchange with the city. It was also published on the city's website. We did have the meeting. No one attended other than myself, the owner of the property, and the applicant, John Collier. So unfortunately, the notices went out, and we can't, pick up people at their house and take them to the meeting. So the notification did go out for this meeting, and I have had a significant amount of communication, I think, with Ms. Crone since Monday, and filled her inbox with a lot of information about refrigeration, cold storage, that sort of thing. And we do have a team present here who's traveled from distant places, and they're here. I think it would be advantageous for the board and for the affected parties to hear a presentation, because essentially we might be able to answer some of their questions and allay some of their fears and give you a greater comfort. And whether you act or not tonight might be a question, but we do have the team here. It's an opportunity to share information, and Mr. Crone is present.
Legal, is it okay if we were to proceed and hear presentations from city staff and from the applicant? And then if there are issues that we feel need to be addressed with continuance, that we could then rule on the continuance? Or do
Yes.
we need to rule? Okay, so we can. So I think it's best at this point to have all the information out there. I think that would help the affected parties as well, because it seems like that's one of the issues, is that getting information. So I see no issue personally with going through the presentations, and I think we should do that. And then, gentlemen, if we want to discuss the continuance before we make a motion to approve or deny, we can discuss it at that
I just
time.
have a quick question for Wes. When they were sent out by mail.
Yes.
And there's very formal legal process for, you get it from the property appraisers, and they give you the list of all the parties, and you mail it with return receipts, or not return receipts, but certified.
Well, we
mail.
know how the mailing works, but they're claiming that no one received the notice. That's the only thing that bothers me.
Oftentimes, a lot of people have a different address on their property that the property appraiser would give them than who actually lives there, and it would go to the address on file with the property appraiser.
We do have a picture in my presentation of returned mail. So there's evidence, and it's dated in July. So a mailing did go out. Whether it got to the address is just a question.
Okay. So I think we will proceed with the hearing, and then we'll consider the motion for continuance after we've got all the information out, and we can that will be an option for the board in terms of either approving, denying, or issuing continuance if we feel that's warranted. Okay, so we are now to the staff. If staff would like to begin with their presentation.
Hello, my name is Karina Maldonado. I am the senior community planner. We're here to discuss project PZB 25-014-00013. A major.
Closer to the mic, please.
Sure. Is that better? Yeah. So we're here to discuss a major site plan, conditional use permit, and sustainable bonus incentive program request to construct a high-intensity cold storage use at 2209 7th Avenue North. The sustainable bonus incentive program request is for an additional 5 feet in height. The subject site is Zone Industrial Park of Commerce and has an industrial future land use designation. So background on the property, it's currently vacant, has never been constructed on. There's no building and there are no code violations open on the site. So the applicant is proposing, as we mentioned, a major site plan for the construction of the high intensity cold storage use. And this will include full development of the site. The conditional use permit to establish a high intensity cold storage, which indicates that it's over 7,500 square feet. Anything over 7,500 square feet would be considered a high intensity use. And then again, the sustainable bonus is for the additional 5 feet in height. So here is a general aerial image of the site. As you can see, it is vacant. There is a canal adjacent to it and other industrial properties around it. So I know it's hard to see because we copied a site plan, a large site plan onto this PowerPoint. But as you can see, it will consist of a rectangle structure. There will be an access road on the west side for fire access. On the east side, that's where the parking and loading will be located, and there's a portion of the parking on the south side. I do have a landscape plan here. We found that the landscape plan is sufficient. We are requesting a condition of approval to the northern facade of the building is the front. So we are asking that the applicant either architecturally enhance that facade or increase the landscape in that area, which would be like a dense tiered landscaping system. So this may be revised to include additional on the north side in front of the building. Here are architectural elevations of the project. I know it's hard to see on this too, but it is in the packet. They are proposing a 35-foot tall structure. The extra 5, the base zoning district allows the 30 feet. They are requesting an additional 5 feet for additional height to accommodate the freezers and sprinkler systems. Here is a first floor plan that depicts the freezer areas, the loading dock, and the loading space parking. The next page, I do have an enlarged first floor plan. You can see this, I believe, shows 4 of the units of the cold storage bays. They will have a mezzanine area on a portion of the building. This depicts that floor plan. Going through the surrounding properties in a little bit more detailed. On the north side, there is the north side currently has the Industrial Park of Commerce or IPOC zoning district designation. And it includes distribution warehouses and offices. On the south side, it is a mix of both the IPOC and mixed use west zoning designation. That includes warehouses and multifamily residential properties. The east side, that includes, it is zone Industrial Park of Commerce, includes warehouse and storage. The west side is, if you remember the site plan, the west side showed the canal. West of that is unincorporated Palm Beach County. Their zoning district currently is medium density residential, and it contains single family residences. So we found that based on our analysis, the proposal meets it's consistent with the comprehensive plan. It's consistent with the strategic plan. With the LDRs as condition, it will be consistent with that. And we are recommending approval. A portion I do want to go back on the site plan that I forgot to discuss is in the staff report, you'll find that the northern portion of the property of the building, we require a certain setback for structures that are in excess of 30 feet. So this building. So this building will have to be placed between 28 feet and 32 feet setback from the front property line. On this site plan, they are proposing 37 feet. So we did add a condition of approval to address that through a site plan process to correct the setback, which does require it to be about 5 feet closer to that front property line. And I also forgot to mention that a portion of the property will be included in a right-of-way dedication, which means they will dedicate a portion of their property to the city so that in case the city wants to do future road expansions. And then there were some inconsistencies with the staff report that we want to correct. We do want to correct it after the fact, but we do want to mention on record these inconsistencies. Specifically, the off-street parking analysis on page 5, we would like to strike the last sentence as that does not apply. That was originally a comment in the first round of the site plan review. But the applicant did correct that. So that last sentence is no longer valid. So we are asking to strike that.
Which one is that?
This is the page 5 off-street parking. This towards the top. And then the analysis portion, the second part, the very last sentence. That is no longer applicable. Did you have questions about that?
You're talking about the 18 trailer parking spaces? Okay, just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
There are two other sections I wanted to go over. So if you're good with this. So on page 7 and the conditional use permit analysis, there are 2 portions that we would like to strike. They are not applicable to this project. Specifically the last sentence of the conditional use permit attachment B section at the very top. The last sentence in that first paragraph, we would like to completely strike it as it's not for this project. And then in the second paragraph, the second sentence, we would completely like to strike that as that is not for this project either.
Again, just for clarification, the sentence you mentioned in the first paragraph is the one with regard to the museum, which doesn't have to do with this.
Right.
And then the second paragraph, it's the one with the existing municipal services. Is that the second sentence of the second paragraph?
Sentence, the proposed associated site improvements. Oh, it's a third?
The third
Oh,
sentence.
sorry, it is the third. Yep.
That's why I want to clarify. Thank you. So
Thank you.
proposed associated site improvements will include conditional existing parcels, new housing, new art museum. Right. So that also doesn't apply. Thank you.
And just real quick, the applicant has agreed to all the conditions of approval.
Okay.
I'm just going to check to see if there are any other items. Have the motion, but the conditions, just to run through that real quick. We do have conditions of approval to pay into the sustainable bonus fee portion of it and include site improvements to correct the site or the front setback that we discussed and to either enhance the front facade architectural treatment or include additional landscaping in that portion. And then typical conditions of approval that we add for lighting and complying with the county's well field program and see here. Public Works also added their general conditions of approval. These are all listed in the staff report and haven't been changed. Electric also added general conditions of approval, specifically requiring a building permit. And water and sewer also had conditions of approval regarding the meeting specific permits and specific calculations and plans that they would need to show those calculations. And, Lake Worth Drainage District is also requiring to remove the proposed 20-foot right-of-way dedication on the Lake Worth Drainage District side and to add a 20-foot easement on the plans. And that would be adjacent to the canal. And this is the end of my presentation. I know the applicant did send us their presentation as well that they would like to present. Do you have any questions for me before we move to
I
that?
think we're gonna do questions after, so I think we take the.
Yeah,
that
maybe later,
presentation and then the
later on. Yeah.
Presentation, so are you finished with your presentation?
I am finished with
Great.
my presentation. Yeah, I'll bring up the applicant's presentation, Wes.
All right, thank you very much. Wes, it's your presentation. Thank you, sir.
Good evening again, Wes Blackman, CWB Associates. I'm a senior principal planner and owner of the firm based here in Lake Worth Beach. I have the pleasure of working and representing for John Gollier of United Cold Storage. I'm a registered lobbyist through Palm Beach County for this. John is a leader in the cold storage supply chain industry, and he's currently out of the country tonight, or I'm sure he would be here for this. We have a number of subject matter experts here to field your questions from any affected party or the board. Slide 2, just a review of the request. I think staff did an excellent job summarizing our request. The 5 feet really triggered the need for the neighborhood meeting, the Sustainable Bonus Incentive Program. And we're asking for conditional use approval for the cold storage in the Industrial Park of Commerce and a major site plan review. Next, please. This is a general location map. I think what's important to note here is that this is a major part of the city, the western part of the city, west of I-95. And it's predominantly made up of Industrial Park of Commerce zoning. And it was a strategic decision between Palm Beach County and the city of Lake Worth Beach to have the city of Lake Worth Beach annex this property, help diversify the tax base with industrial property. And so we could have commercial paying property owners, employers, and customers for our electric and water utility. And it's also important to note that the 2 through streets across the canal are reserved for Lake Worth Road to the south and 10th Avenue North to the north. 7th Avenue North is a dead-end street that ends at the canal, and this property is situated at the southeast corner of the canal and 7th Avenue North. Next, please. And the property is approximately 10 acres. You can see it designated there with the yellow star. The future land use is industrial I, and the zoning is Industrial Park of Commerce, and the use is consistent with that. Any use over 7,500 square feet is a conditional use in the Industrial Park of Commerce. It's a very strategic piece of property, and it's one of the larger pieces remaining in the Park of Commerce. Next, please. Traffic and access. It's important to point out that all the site traffic will use existing routes through the Industrial Park of Commerce zoning district from I-95 likely to 10th Avenue and then Boutwell Road. There's no vehicular connection bridge or access between the facility and the residential neighborhood across the canal. As a result, traffic will not increase on local residential streets, and that would include the neighborhood west of the canal. And the canal really forms, I say a natural separation here, but we have to remember that it is man-made, and we just got here relatively recently in terms of geological time. Next, please. This is our traffic letter from Andrea Troutman, who submitted it to the county, and it was accepted. This is in a transportation concurrency exception area. So the trips from the Park of Commerce, in order to realize that strategic vision of diversification of the city's tax base, can happen in an easier manner. And traffic is not looked on as much as the economic benefit of the redevelopment and development of these sorts of properties. And it does meet the traffic performance standards. Next, please. I'd just like to review the word intensity and what that actually means in this context. The way the code is structured, there are small or low intensity, medium intensity, and high intensity. So for example, if this were a 7,600 square foot cold storage facility, it would be referred to as a high intensity use. So in reading the staff report, high intensity is consistently used before cold storage use when we're talking about this. And it's somewhat misleading, as on the spectrum of cold storage facilities, this is actually a very low intensity cold storage facility, and it's meant for 12 different tenants, and it serves a completely different market rather than a large monolithic sort of cold storage warehouse. And it's a niche market that UCS has discovered and is catering to smaller businesses, everything from florists, pharmacists, to restaurants and other end users. Next, please. And this is just expanding on that. Calling it high intensity doesn't necessarily mean that it has a high impact to the surrounding area. And this, we have taken great effort in making sure that all the mechanical equipment is enclosed within the building. It's in the center of the midpoint of this long building along the western property line. The western facade of the building just has emergency exit doors and stairs. There's no active day in and day out use of the western side. There's significant landscaping, and I'll go through how we accommodated fire access, which was required 360 degrees around the building. It does not generate loud noise or odor. It does not increase traffic in residential areas, and the high intensity label does not predict any negative operational behavior. Next. Okay, this is the public neighborhood meeting that was triggered by the sustainable bonus incentive request for the additional 5 feet for the freezer portion. And that is the actual wording, and we met that to the letter. We provided documentation to the city. In terms of that, the meeting was held on July 23rd and advertised in advance. Next, please. Yes. So we posted the property, and those signs we have printed ourselves. And that is a copy of the notice that went out to people within 400 feet, which is the same set of properties that were noticed for this meeting. Next, please. And that is the map that you get from the property appraiser's office, which shows all the properties within that 400-foot radius from the property line. And you can see that just the portion of that western area does capture the neighborhood to the west of the canal. And that's in unincorporated Palm Beach County. And to the right there is an affidavit which I signed on July 8th. Sherry was the notary and just said that we met the conditions, that the mailing was made and the sign was posted on the property. 2 signs were posted on the property. Next, please. To the left is an email exchange between me and the city saying that the notices are mailed and the property is posted. I will let you know what, if anything, I hear. I didn't hear anything. Keith Sullivan, I believe, is in the city's IT department, and he was making sure that the meeting was noticed on the city's website in advance of the meeting. And then to the right side there, you can see returned letters that were undeliverable. One was on Elizabeth Road. And there might have been others, but those were the 2 that I took a picture of. But that's evidence that a mailing did go out in July. Next. Okay. This is an aerial view of the subject property. Finding my place here. Note the truck sitting and using the right-of-way. That's a common condition. This is an attractive nuisance for the neighborhood and the Park of Commerce, where we have trucks idling sometimes overnight. And it seems to be a favorite location. And these pictures, the one is taken from the northwest looking towards the southeast, the aerial photography, and the other one is just taken from a typical like Google Earth aerial. And the subject property is surrounded in red. And you can see 2 different trucks just north of the property there. So establishment of a use such as this, an active use with coming and going and security cameras, would eliminate that nuisance. Next, please. Okay, this is our tale about Lakewood Drainage District, their easement, and the site design issues that created. The blue arrow to the north indicates that there is a 20-foot easement on the east side of the Keller Canal right-of-way, which is a 200-foot wide right-of-way. In addition to that, on the east, there is a 20-foot, and I believe it's on the west too, a 20-foot easement that cannot be constructed upon. And we were trying, based on comment from Palm Beach County Fire Rescue, they required that the building have 360-degree coverage for emergency vehicles, and particularly their fire truck. And in order to do that, they needed a minimum, first they said 20, but they did allow it to go down to 18 feet. And we were trying to co-locate it within that easement, since that stabilized path road for the fire truck would only be used in case of an emergency. And they did not want to entertain that notion. And there was a lot of back and forth, and any delay with this project, this happened during July and August, really is a result of that. And what that resulted in is having us move the building 18 feet to the east to accommodate that road. So that is the current site plan that is before you, and part of what the city has already reviewed and all the departments have reviewed. Next, please. Okay, the proposed site plan. Again, it's hard to see, but hopefully you had a method where you could zoom in electronically on a PDF viewer at your home and could see some of the details. But essentially, it's a 45-foot setback on the western side. A 20-foot setback is required, but we're set back 45 feet, and that is to the emergency stairs. And the stairs are approximately 5 feet wide. So the western setback to the building is actually 50 feet. And this is the building relocated approximately 18 feet. We understand that the building is actually too far away from 7th Avenue North, and one of the conditions of approval is that we decrease that by 5 feet, and we're willing to do that. And the existing condition lets us do that. There is a wet retention area to the east, which gives us almost 150-foot setback from the eastern properties in the for the Marlin properties in the Park of Commerce there. And a dry retention area to the south, which creates a 136-foot setback from the property to the south. And that would be the Oakwood Apartments that is west and south of the property there. This is an odd-shaped property, and this building, I think, fits itself kind of like a hand in glove, and it might be harder to find uses that are more friendly and more compatible with the area than this particular use. Next, please. And this is what I was talking about. The building itself, because it's 35 feet high and over 600 feet long, it really creates its own sound and light buffering barrier between the parking area to the east and any vehicle headlights turning into the property. It really is its own best friend in terms of the use of the property and the impact to adjacent properties. And we have additional landscaping along the canal edge for natural screening, and the light is fully shielded and downcast per city code, and lighting is minimal on that western side. Next, please. Okay, this is the sustainable bonus incentive program calculation. And this is also a good chance to see the evolution of the site plan, because this is a previous version of the site plan. You can see a much larger asphalted area, and the building was snugged right up to the canal as far as we could get it. But I had this slide prepared, and I thought it was a good way to show the evolution of the design. Plus, that aqua area is the portion of the building that we're asking for the additional 5 feet in height. In the Industrial Park of Commerce zoning district, the maximum height is 30 feet. And we're asking for an additional 5 feet, and that is to the ridge of this low-rise gable roof. And it's so low-rise, there's only a 10-inch delta between the eave and the ridge. So it's almost a flat roof. And there is no equipment on the roof. And so the total building is 88,019 square feet approximately. The building coverage is 80, and the difference there is the mezzanine that was discussed by the staff. And that's well within the building coverage allowed for this zoning district. And the freezer portion, which is the aqua portion, is 53,565. And that's the portion that is 5 feet over the 30 foot height allowed for this zoning district. For the Park of Commerce, I think we educated the staff, and I was educated too, but another example of the incentive that is given to projects within the Park of Commerce is that anywhere else in the city east of I-95, you would be charged $7.50 a square foot. But in the Park of Commerce, it is $3 a square foot for a sustainable bonus incentive program application. So I thought that was interesting. Next, please. And this is just part of the application that we filled out to do the calculation. What we end up doing, the last line is the amount the check would be written to the city, plus the 7287 that is not half of the improvements. And John Lang is here, and he can talk about the amount of improvements to the property over and above that required by the city's landscaping ordinance. Next, please. This is elevation. Again, it's difficult to see, but the third line or the fourth line down are the north and south elevations, and you can see the very slight peak of the gable there, which is just 10 inches difference from the eave to the ridge. And that is the part of the building that is 5 feet higher than 30 feet. The loading dock area, which you can see is on the eastern side, and that would be the third image down from the top, and the first too. Yeah, that's sectioned. And each unit would have 2 bays. And then also a person door coming out on the eastern side. And the second image down, you can see the plain wall that would face to the west. And those stairs are just for emergency purposes. And if you look on the last image line at the bottom of the page there, over to the right, there's a circled area. That's where the equipment would be that is internal to the building. So all the noise-making equipment, all the humming, everything would be enclosed within the capsule of the building. Next. These are just some renderings to give you a feel of the scale and how the streetscape would look. Again, the site is vacant currently. And I pointed out the nuisance factor with the trucks on this dead-end road. Yes, next, please. Next, yeah, thank you. And this is the western side. This was an earlier version, which had the building actually closer. So in reality, the building would be farther away and there would be additional landscaping. Plus you would have the fire access road there, which would only be used in case of emergency. Next, please. And this is looking from the south towards the north. That's the south elevation of the building. You're looking over the dry retention area, and you can see that very gradual slight peak in the roof, but that's the 35-foot portion. Next, please. And this is looking from the east towards the west, and this would be around the wet detention area. And you can see how the bay doors would look, but all that is consistent with contemporary industrial architecture. Next, please. And this is the existing tree disposition plan. We have John Lang here with their landscaping firm. He's a registered landscape architect, and he can answer any questions you have regarding the tree disposition or what is planned for the landscaping. Next, please. And that is the landscaping plan with the addition of additional landscaping, as the staff noted, along the north property line to further buffer the building from the street to have more of a tiered effect there. Next, please. These are the civil engineering plans, and we have representatives from Langen here tonight to answer your questions about that. They are the ones who designed the retention and detention systems to deal with the site drainage. Next, please. And this is a paving plan. There are other plans, but these are just representative. I wanted to show them to you this way. Next, please. We're almost done. And we agree with all the findings in the staff report. I did, and it's included in your backup, addressed each one of the conditions individually, and I would ask that those be made part of the record. We agree with the staff recommendation and their findings that these requests are consistent with the City of Lake Worth Beach Comprehensive Plan, Strategic Plan, and Land Development Regulations as conditioned, and we agree with the conditions of approval. And any of us here are available to answer questions.
Okay, Wes, thank you very much. I think we're going to hear from the affected parties, and then we're going to come back to questions for the city, the applicant, or the affected parties. So the first affected party is Peter DeTore. would you like to come up and address the board? So affected parties are limited to 10 minutes total. And keep that in mind while you're speaking.
You go first. I'm going to take a little. My name is Peter DeTore. I live at 402 Elizabeth Road. I'm an affected party. Good evening. I have one question for the architect, and that is the wind coming around that building. It's 35 feet high and 600 feet long. It is a barrier to ground wind. That causes the wind has to go around the corner. Some of it's going to go over the building, but much of it's going to come around the corner. And the Venturi effect is going to speed that wind up. We already experience full east wind at our residence. And if you had a sight with a gun, you couldn't aim closer to the edge of the side of the building and our property. So I'm going to ask the architect if he's done a wind study and how fast will that wind be hitting our house after this building is built?
We're writing all these down. We'll address.
Okay,
So yeah,
that's it. And then I'm going to turn it over to my partner here who's prepared.
Okay. Okay, here we go. So my interest here is to ensure that the project that goes into this last 10 acres of the Park of Commerce directly across from my home and neighborhood will maintain the harmony that already exists. Because right now, even though there's, apartments and existing businesses in my neighborhood, there's harmony. And it does say in the code that a new development has to ensure that harmony continues. And I looked it up. It's section 23.2-31C in the qualitative development standards. It's written that there's 15 points where the development needs to show it's in compliance. And, the planners ticked off all the boxes, but I don't agree. And so I want to share with you why I don't agree with why some of those boxes are not in compliance. So there are many visual elements of this project that I object to that will diminish the property value and quality of life for my neighborhood. And in the code, that same section, number 4, it says, and I'm quoting from the code, enhancement of residential privacy. The site plan shall provide reasonable visual and acoustical privacy for all dwelling units located therein and adjacent thereto. And the fences, walks, barriers, and vegetation shall be arranged for the protection and enhancement of property and to enhance the privacy of the occupants. And I don't feel like that this plan does that to the west. To Wes Blackman's credit, I see that he has provided quite a bit of consideration and privacy for the apartments to the south and to the business community in the Park of Commerce warehouses to the east. But to the west, I'm here tonight waving my arms for the neighborhood and to ask for equal consideration. And there's 3 main areas that I've detailed here that I want to talk about, and then some others that I may or may not have time to talk about. But the 3 areas are the landscaping and building appearance to the west, the proposed riprap along the bank and its effect on wildlife, and the wind mitigation that Peter mentioned. So for the landscaping, I find that it seems like a minuscule amount of landscaping proposed for the west side of the building. And I'm trying to I'd like you to imagine for yourself what we will be looking at. And although that was a really pretty, rendering that he showed of that west side. It's like one lone tree every 25 feet planted in front of a massive 35-foot high building that is 657 feet long. And 657 feet is the length of 2 football fields end to end. This building will block out light and airflow. As a gardener, I can't see how those lone trees are going to survive over there, sweltering in the harsh western exposure, pinned between a building, a paved fire and rescue access road, and a canal bank that was once filled with grasses and other plants, but now is, as proposed in the plan, will be filled in with riprap and metal structure to hold the bank from eroding into the canal. So to remedy this unesthetically, unappealing, and environmentally questionable proposal, at least in my view, for the west side of the building, I would like to see a much thicker band of dense tiered landscaping on the west side, like they're proposing on the north side. And the reason they're proposing that on the north side is, visual consideration. And that dense tiered landscaping would provide habitat and screening for the neighborhood to the west. And another suggestion one of my neighbors made, Tom, who is also listed as an affected party, but he's taking care of his 98-year-old mother tonight, so he couldn't be here. But the suggestion that he made was to paint a mural on the west side of the building. It's hard to live with the idea of staring at a 35-foot sheer white wall across the canal that will kind of loom over our properties. And I took a couple screenshots of what I think would be appropriately styled murals that could go a long way in maintaining the visual harmony of our neighborhood and put back some of the aesthetic value that is being taken away by the proposed project, and also fits in with some of the arts and culture goals of Lake Worth Beach. I don't know, just like old Florida kind of scenery, and I also realize that, it's a cold storage facility, and ideally you want it like white, but maybe it could be very subtly colored old Florida. Because right now what we look at is, it's kind of just like these. And I wanted to talk about the riprap proposed on the bank. In environmental terms, this is what is called hardening of a waterway. And from my research, I found that riprap on Florida Canal Bank creates heat islands that generally disrupt the natural ecosystems by creating hard, hot surfaces that can increase water temperature and block animal movement. But there are eco-friendly solutions that could be utilized instead of riprap, such as living shorelines. And I just wonder, perhaps the building itself could be just a little bit slimmer to accommodate more green space on the west side, which would also ease the rapid runoff created by so many hard surfaces, which would in turn allow a more natural solution to the holding of the bank than, this industrial solution of hardening the waterway. Peter talked about the wind mitigation study, and another concern I have is just, have I taken up too much time?
You've got about 90 seconds.
Oh, okay. There is a lot of threatened and endangered species that use that 10 acres. And it's kind of heartbreaking, but, limpkin, little blue heron, roseate spoonbill, tricolor heron, wood stork, snowy egrets, and, the star of the show is this southeastern American kestrel. And there is, a mating pair that has come back year after year and used that land over there as their hunting grounds and nesting space. And I'm concerned also about the lighting on the backside and the hours of the lighting, and hours of operation on the unit cold, which is the name of the company, I guess. On their website, it says that the hours of operation for this site in South Florida will be 24/7. So that's concerning to me, you know, being so close to a neighborhood with trucks beeping, backing up. I also wonder if there's going to be idling trucks, idling box trucks or idling tractor trailers. I'm concerned about the decibel levels, which is allowed in that area from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m., 85 decibels, which is, you know, enough that you have to wear ear protection. Okay, probably. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, and the next affected party is Robert Andino.
Yes, good evening. It's my first time speaking to something like this. So if you see me tripping, everything she said. Again, thank you for the opportunity to speak in this meeting. And I'm going to read what I got because if not, I'm going to get lost. So as I said, my name is Robert Andino. I'm an affected party. I live across the canal that's adjacent to this project. I'm the owner of the property 406 Elizabeth Road, and it's one of the properties that's adjacent right directly, right? Consequently, we'll have more impact, direct impact from this proposed project. My backyard has a direct view to the location, which is for now, like you said, a very pretty green area with trees, all types of animals. I can't name them; I just see them. What I do see, you know, these Florida ducks and the hatchlings and all these other little moor hens with hatchlings, and it's like a safe haven. And it's interesting when I saw the picture up there, the layout, you know, and they showed this green area, or a little more to the north. There's another green area, but if you look all the rest of Lake Worth, there's no green area. You don't see anything. It would be nice to keep it. Anyway. So it's my first time, like I said, and I am a disabled combat veteran. I'm also a COVID survivor. I was intubated, and thank God I'm here. And for me, when I bought this property in 2021, was a therapy. Is what I was looking at. I was like, when I saw the property and walked to the back, I said, this is what I need. And this is what I do when I'm at home. I like to sit in the back with my family. I've planted a couple of fruit trees, and it's my joy, my peace, and it's the peace and the beauty that's back there that helps me, you know. So I do have concerns, right, about what's going to happen here. And we did get this last minute letter, you know, like I said, I was close to not getting in, but thank God I'm here. And I know many probably don't know much or have no idea what's going on. Personally asked the question is there any way this could be, like she asked, maybe further to look more into it? I know they're going to have a lot of answers, what we're asking, but there might be a lot more people who are not in agreement or against it, but at least I'm here to say I'm not, you know, I do applaud those who came and were able to say, here I am. And I said, I know that this beautiful area is going to be pretty much destroyed. You know, the quiet and peace is definitely going to be disrupted, eliminated forever. There's no going back after this is done. And for the functionality of this proposed high intensity cold storage, I wonder if there's any other place this could be placed. But sitting here, you know, I ask any of you guys, have you ever been to one of these facilities at all or been close to one? I don't know. That to be able to hear any sound, any noise, is there any beeping, any honking? Especially it's going to be 24 hours. I mean, is that's how it's going to be? I don't know. That's a question I had. What are the times? Is this going to be, you know, normal hours operation like everybody else? Is going to be 24 hours, trucks honking their horns at midnight. Like I said, I do suffer from PTSD. I suffer from chronic sleep disorder. So definitely this is going to put a dent in my lifestyle. I don't know about other people. I could talk about myself. Can you imagine, as she said, you're coming to the back of your yard and having to look at this big white wall with a couple of trees spread out. I have elderly neighbors, and I sure know that it's going to disrupt their peace too. And I have concerns with the lighting, the back of the building that's facing my home. It's nice and dark at night. It'd be great to keep it like that. So will this lighting be controlled somehow or no light at all? I definitely have concerns about the impact on the value of my home. I believe strongly that the aesthetics, that's going to be so different. When I purchased my home, if I were to sell it now, it'd be great, because when they walk out and see it, like, wow, yeah, I want this now, it's going to change. If I have to sell my home in the future, when they walk out back there, they're going to go, whoa, instead of wow. So I'm going to be impacted if I were to sell this property in the future. So I understand it's going to happen for the other people too. Their values, their home values are not going to be as good as they should be without this being there. Let's see what else. So if this goes forward, I would be appreciated, as she said before me, Elise, that there'll be more trees, more something, more green back there, more something to lessen the impact, because it's still going to be impacted negatively, but at least to make it less worse, if I have to say it that way. I don't stand for this. I go against it, but if it happens, well, at least get something going, maybe more green. Like I said, it's sad to have a piece of land like that just disappear when you look at the map and there's not much left of Lake Worth in green. It's all buildings and houses, concrete, roads. And of course, everybody wants progress, everybody wants money. But how about things that actually are alive and represent life? I think humanity's getting tired of all the buildings and all the stuff. So I think this should have been somehow turned into a green protected space. I believe it's valuable to protect our green areas too. Why not turn it into some type of passive park? Keep the green. It's good for the oxygen too. We all need it. Oxygen is life. And I understand this is an industrial zone. It's already zoned like that, but it can be changed. There's nothing that says it can't. I don't think there's a law that says it's prohibited. Like I said, once the damage done is done, but I hope that somehow it's less impactful, less noise, less lighting, more green, and pretty much if we need more time, that'd be great. And then again, that's pretty much what I would like to say, that definitely the same way I'm going to be impacted. I know all the neighbors that are in that edge right there are going to be impacted the same way. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, the final affected party that we have listed is Tom Cleary. Is Tom Cleary with us?
One second, Chair, it's 98 months.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so the next two things that we have here, gentlemen, just so you know, we're going to do board member questions for any of the three parties, the staff, the applicant, or the affected parties. And then once we've asked our comments, we'll go to public comment for anyone who, in addition to the audience, wants to speak. And then there's actually a cross-examination portion where the applicants are allowed to respond to the affected parties. The parties are allowed to ask questions. But this period now is for us to ask questions of any of the parties that you gentlemen have. So, questions?
Staff. So just on the community outreach, what I read here, as the date of this publication, staff has not received any public comment letters of support or opposition for this application. Is that still the case?
No, the affected parties would be in opposition of it.
So 3 affected parties
Right.
would be what you would receive?
Didn't get any additional ones after.
Okay, thank you.
Can I take a little time to maybe have some of the Wes or some of the others address some of their concerns? Is that,
There's a whole separate
There's
section.
a whole
on it,
separate
too. They can
section
go
for
back
that.
and forth, and they can
Is
discuss
there-
things. So this is just if you have any questions, and then we're going to get to that, and they can
okay,
address each
all
other.
right, then I'll wait on that.
The only question that I had for staff was just a confirmation kind of distance. I think I heard right that you've got a 200-foot right of way for the canal, and then an additional 20-foot easement, and then an 18-foot fire access road. So you've got 240 feet that, you know, from the edge of their property, and then you've got your landscaping buffer. So I think you said your total from your property line is 42 feet was your total setback.
45.
Just, it's 45 to the stair, the emergency stair, and 50 to the building from the property
From
line.
the building wall, you've got 50 feet, then you've got the 200-foot right of way,
Yes.
and then the backyard of their property. So
I think there might be a,
wall to wall, you're probably looking at 300 feet from their.
and there might be a 20-foot maintenance easement on the west side too.
Just for
So-
clarification, it's not altogether 200 feet. It's 200 feet is the actual right of way owned by Lake Worth Drainage District.
Correct.
And then you have an additional 50 feet to the building from there.
Yes,
So
of which
that's-
20 feet is their maintenance easement.
Right, but that's on your property, not part of their 20
Right,
feet right
right.
away. Yeah. Okay, and then the last question that I have for you, sorry, really quick.
Yeah.
I've dealt with them before. I'm assuming that the riprap is a Lake Worth Drainage District
Yes, it's a $1 million condition of our
that
permit.
they are requiring you to do.
Yes, to do that.
And so the Lake Worth Drainage District, their primary purpose of that canal is for stormwater management for the whole county. And with sea level rise, they've become much more strict on managing their stuff. And that's the reason that 20-foot easement is there, is because they want to be able to bring their dredges or their trucks in there. And that way they don't have to go into your backyard. They're going to come into their backyard in order to reach out and clean out that canal if it ever needs to happen. And so I do agree with the idea of softening the shoreline and things like that. But that's a whole different organization that we don't have any control over, and they really can dictate exactly what they want. So that's where that riprap requirement comes from. I don't have any other questions, so I think we can move on. Okay. So now we go to public comment. Do we have anyone from the public who has submitted cards who would like to speak? Anyone just from the public? Okay, I don't see anyone. Do we have any comments to be read in the record? No, we do not. Okay, so now we're moving on to the cross-examination portion. So this is where we're going to start off with city staff can ask any questions that they have for either the applicant or the affected parties. Does the staff have any questions?
I do not.
Okay. And now it is for the applicant if they have any questions for city staff or the affected parties.
No.
No. Okay. And then the affected parties questions for the applicant or the staff. So I know this is where you had a couple of questions. This is where you're able to ask them directly and get an answer from them, where the other portion was kind of your, so I believe there was a question about the wind and there was a question about the landscape buffer. I think were two of the primary ones. If you want to have.
Well, my question about the wind was.
Please come forward to the microphone.
Yeah. So my question about the wind is the wind blows out of the east, right? Everybody got that. So that's, my house is directly east. So what comes off of the property blows right on our house. And we have, we've experienced a lot of high winds in our house. Now I've done a little bit of research, and what I found was that there is a Venturi effect on the sides of the building. Now, the Venturi effect can increase the speed of the wind going through it by 100%. That means if there was a 30-mile-an-hour wind, and that's a lot of wind, it would hit our house at 60 miles an hour. It's just a straight shot. What did you say, 200 feet? My house is 200 feet from the side of the building. So I'm kind of concerned about that. Is it, if we have, severe storm, which we have, we've had 70-mile-an-hour winds, with a big storm. So will it be 150? Will we be experiencing mild hurricane conditions for a minor storm? That's, I think, a valid concern. And I wanted to get an answer from Wes. Maybe now he can answer that, or I don't know. What do you think? Can you handle that one?
I can respond.
All right then.
Okay, to the board here, we're just kind of talking amongst ourselves. Number one, we do have to meet the Florida Building Code for wind impact and everything. I will point out to the board that the by right height in the Industrial Park of Commerce zoning district is 30 feet. So there could be a 30-foot high building built there sometime in our lifetime or 100 years from now, or this year, if this is approved. But we're talking about an increment difference of 5 feet for this particular application. We're asking for an additional 5 feet. Now, we haven't done a wind analysis of this. Of course, we have hurricanes in South Florida. There is a significant difference. There is no wind barrier in the canal, obviously. And if you're on a canal, you're going to experience high winds. But the impact of this additional 5 feet on this building, I think, would be de minimis. But it's not, we're not responding with a wind study to say that this is, not going to affect anyone in the area. But that's all we can say.
Okay. Thank you. And then are there any other questions from the affected parties for the applicant or for C staff?
I'm wondering, is there going to be idling tractor trailers or box trucks? Like, what is the nature of it? You know? Here, I'll just sit here.
I can say that periodically, yes, trucks will be idling or vehicles will be idling on this property. However, it would not be a long-term thing. The long-term thing that's going on now is someone in a sleeper cab that might be running with their diesel engine on 7th Avenue North. This particular property will have security cameras. It'll be watched. There will be leases that people have to adhere to. Hours of operation, I think, are 24/7, but this is the nature of the operation. It's an industrial use, and people have their goods delivered at all hours of the day in order to stock for the day, especially if you're a restaurant. So part of the design of the building is to have no windows on the west side, to have a completely inactive western side along the canal, and all the coming and going and activity, noise, et cetera, would be east of the building.
Can I?
You're allowed. Yep. I don't.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I like that that's all happening on the east side, but there's those like bays, or in the parking lot, there's like areas for tractor trailers. And I'm thinking, well, once you have the lease, once you, this is your building, are they allowed to just idle their trucks in those spots? Is there something in the lease that would say you can't do that? So you're removing the attractive nuisance of just some random truck driver, but the people who are leasing them are they allowed to? So then we could potentially have a ton of them.
What I'm being told is that is the practice of people who use trucks and delivery trucks of this nature, they do not want their vehicles to idle because it wastes fuel. And there's no reason for them to be idling because they're just exiting the goods or entering the goods to the truck, depending on what's happening in the storage facility and what they're delivering or receiving. So it would, if it does, it would be a rare occurrence. And it would be short.
Can it be made a condition of the lease that they don't do that?
And there is a distance factor too. I'm reminded of the width of the canal and the amount the building is set back. And then you have the width of the building as well.
Yeah. So there's that, on the south end, there's a row of, parking that goes right up to the, back of the building. So it's not all on the front. That's what I'm thinking about there.
We should have this on record, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm concerned about the row of parking on the south side of the building that is parallel to the building, and it looks like it's a lot of truck trailers could park there and idle.
If you look at the site plan, it might be hard to bring up and see that. But the longer spaces are along the eastern side of the parking area. And those are for the tractor trailers. We anticipate that there would be employees in this building, so long-term parking would probably be along the southern parking lot there for the bays that are on the south part of the building. And the coming and going customers, whatever might be the convenience parking next to the building. We also have some to the north, but those would not be idling vehicles. Those would be parked vehicles.
And those are just regular car spaces, right?
Right, yes.
So like a truck couldn't really get in there trying to back up. So the trucks won't even be going into that area. They'll be.
No. And if you remember, the staff deleted one of the comments there about we came in with the larger footprint for the parking area. And the city has a stipulation that you just can't have excessive parking and to limit the paving. So we cut back that. And when we moved the building, we found it necessary to accommodate a spot to maneuver vehicles. And that's why that area is not striped there. So you're not backing out into a road, or it just opens up the site a little more, especially with the building farther to the east.
I want to clarify something that, pardon me, but I think when my partner said that her concern about noise of idling trucks, and I think what she really meant was these refrigerator containers have a machine on them to keep the thing cold, and those run 24/7. Now, it's conceivable that you could have 100 containers piled up outside with 100 refrigeration machines running at the same time. I'm just picking a number. So I think idling trucks is not what she really meant. It's containers, like trucks, they have containers on them, and there's machines on those containers, and those containers never get warm. They always run 24/7. That's clarified, I think.
I would just say we're doing our best within the building, and the cold part of this project is that freezer box that we're asking for the additional 5 feet of height for. And any coming and going would be brief, and it would be on the east side of the building. And a refrigerator might be running on a truck, but it's right next to the wall. And if there is any sound impact, it would be to the east.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to comment, everybody, I know this is a long process here for these quasi judicial. I think we're finished with the specific questions, and now we go into closing arguments, which everyone gets another chance to make an argument, but we're not responding back and forth. So unless there's any specific question left from any of the parties, I don't see any. So we're going to move on to the closing argument. So does the city staff have any closing arguments?
No closing arguments.
Okay. So again, once we finish with these closing arguments, just for the board, we're going to do our deliberation. We're going to talk, but at that point we should be done. So any questions that you have, we want to get them out of the way now. So if you have any other questions for anybody that you want to ask, go ahead.
So the noise ordinance for this facility will be met day and night.
Yes.
Okay.
Just one last thing they mentioned, it was mentioned about maybe some extra landscaping along that side that, is there a possibility of, uh, explaining, some extra landscape type of thing?
For the record, John Lang Design Group, landscape architect in Lake Worth for 40 years. We have maxed out the landscaping, especially on all sides. A couple of things. It was said that there's one tree per 20 feet on the west side. That's incorrect. There's actually 3 times that amount of trees. We have one tree every 6 feet on average on the west side. A little bit on the wind mitigation too. Hearing the word Venturi is 2 pinch points where wind goes between. We don't have 2 pinch points here. We have a corner, a northeast and a southeast corner of the building. And when you factor in the buffers and the additional landscape that we have had to put on the north and south of the building, that is going to be virtually minimal. It's not a true Venturi. It's going to be softened by the V shape of both of those landscape areas. One more thing while I'm standing here, I might be able to stop a few other questions. We were asked to literally double the landscape on the north side of the building, which we've agreed to do. Earlier, we were asked to do some fenestration adjustments to the facade of the north facade, which we agreed to do that a long time ago. Now we've been asked to do this. We have literally doubled the landscape on the north side of the building. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other?
Okay, so city staff, no closing arguments. Applicant, any closing arguments from the applicant?
For the record, my name is Cliff Hertz. I'm an attorney with Nelson Mullins Law Firm in West Palm Beach, here representing the applicant. I appreciate your service as board members. I've been to many of these hearings over the course of my career. I think the staff has done an excellent job. I think a lot of the questions that you've asked have been very appropriate. I think they've been answered. What I haven't heard from the affected parties is any real evidence, any expert witness testimony to the effect that any of the criteria. I didn't interrupt you. Any of the criteria that is in the ordinance was not met. So without competent and substantial evidence on the record, I feel like you really should be approving this, because all the criteria has been met and there's no evidence that it hasn't. So that's just a small point. Obviously, it's up to you guys, and hopefully you'll approve our project, which is going to be state of the art, and an amazing project that will serve businesses in the community, employ people in the community, help the tax base. It's exactly why this Park of Commerce was annexed into the city. It obviously has a long and tortured history. There was a prior approval here that was probably a lot more intrusive to the residents across the canal, which was the UMDASH approval that went on for, I don't know how many of you have been on this board for how long, but it went on for years, if I recall correctly. It was the subject matter of a number of suits. And I think everybody would agree this is a much more appropriate project for the site, which is an industrial site, and the people who live across the canal, know this has always been industrial. This is not a change. And, it doesn't really make sense for the city to try to buy this property and make it a passive park. That's what I hear so often of my travels across the county. Whenever a project is not desired by anybody, they want the government to solve the problem by buying it. And we don't think that's a very good solution for the city. And it's not a good solution for our client. And it's not a good solution for the residents and taxpayers of the city of Lake Worth Beach. Thank you.
Thank you. And now affected parties with closing arguments.
Good evening again. You want evidence? Go sit in my backyard. Look at it, what it looks like now, and just imagine looking at a white wall. That's a good evidence right there. You ask me. It's easy to say stuff like that when you're not the one being affected. Again, that's all I can ask is put more green, please. I say you said, 6 feet every tree. That's great. But put something else, put some more green in there. I don't know if hedges or something, but help us out with that, at least if it's go through, because, you know, it's going to suck. Thank you again.
Um, so one thing I want to say is that my neighborhood was built in the 1950s and it predates Lake Worth deciding to make that the industrial park of commerce by decades. So I think some accommodation needs to be made. And yes, this project is better than the last two that were proposed. It's like, okay, you know, maybe three's a charm. And I'm just, you know, I have proposed a couple things that would make it better for us on the west side. And I would like the board and this company to consider, you know, if you can't increase the landscape, I mean, I don't know why you say you're maxed out. I mean, then, you know, perhaps doing a mural. I mean, it would really change the vibe. You know, it would really visually change the vibe as opposed to having this industrial white wall. Let's see. Oh gosh, I feel like there's something else really important that I wanted to say that I can't think of. Let me just breathe for a second. Oh well, that's all I got, I think. I really would appreciate consideration, and I hope you will.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so that concludes the cross-examination portion. I believe, and maybe Leo can help me here, before we go on to deliberation, do we need to make a motion with regards to the continuance request? Or
You can deliberate and then talk about whether or not to continue or to make another motion, and you can just do that as part of your motion making.
Okay, doesn't have to be
It
separate.
does not have to be separate.
Okay,
Have to be just one motion then?
Correct. You could do just one motion.
okay, gentlemen, what are you thinking? This is our deliberation time. I can start. I try to listen to everyone and I understand the impact on residential areas. I think that given that this is an industrial property and that by right they have the ability to develop industrial uses on it, I think of all the industrial uses that could be on here, this one probably provides nearly the most consideration for the neighborhood on the other side. And I know that right now you're scared of it, you're worried about it, but I think in reality, this is going to be, 300, 250 plus feet away from you. It's going to be, the building itself is going to screen a lot of the noises of that equipment running and things like that. The building will provide a lot of sound screening. The landscape is, again, like we all want our corner of the world to be untouched. And I'm with you on that. I mean, my father was an environmentalist for 30 years here in Palm Beach County. I understand that very much. But we need industrial uses in this county. And as a community, through our master planning, this area has been identified and is currently entitled to be industrial areas. The landscaping, the other thing that I always struggle with when we do stuff is, everybody wants no landscaping. So the fire department will not allow them to landscape that path. The Lake Worth Drainage District will not allow them to landscape the buffer. They want the riprap. They want all that because to them, that canal is not what you see it as. You see it as this beautiful natural canal. They see it as a means of getting stormwater out of here during hurricanes to prevent flooding. And so they want to be able to get in there with dredges and keep that thing clean. And they see it very differently than your experience with it on a daily basis. And so that's driving a lot of that flat area. And then the area that they do have, they've landscaped it literally as much as I think they can. So I do believe that in terms of all the uses on this site, this one respects the residential pretty well. And again, you are a significant buffer distance away. They're providing the landscape. They're not providing the windows. They're not providing any activity on that side of it. The building itself is screening you from sound. And the only thing they're really asking us for is 5 feet in additional height, which I think for this use is very well justified. So my thoughts are leaning towards approval on it. I understand your request for contingency, but there not being kind of a right or a guarantee for that, and being it kind of discretionary, and seeing that so many of the applicant has showed up for this and then working it, I don't see a reason for continuance. I think that we can rule on this as a board. So those are my opinions, gentlemen. Here you are.
First of all, I want to thank the affected parties and how they feel about their neighborhoods. I know how I feel. I understand when he was concerned about a refrigeration truck. When I was a kid, I grew up next to a dairy, and that refrigeration thing was always on. So I understood that too. I am always concerned about a neighborhood. I know I am. I'm a senior. I respect my neighborhood, and I know you do too. But in this case, we are in an industrial zone, and the presentation, from what I can see, is well planned. And I have to agree that this plan should go through. And I'm also not concerned about the extra 5 feet to 35 feet.
I also agree that that this project should go through. It's very dynamic, and I think it's going to be great for that area.
Yeah, I'm in favor of this project. I think it's going to be a great addition out there. And when I was looking at it compared to the other two ventures that were going to go in there, this looked like so peaceful and calm that I love it. So I'm in.
Mr. Chair, on second thought, if you would do 2 separate motions, one to rule on the request for continuance and then for the project. Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. So seeing as we've had our deliberations, would someone like to make a motion?
Well, I can, no, we talk about the motion of approval.
So, well, the first motion would be to decide whether or not to continue this to a later date.
I'm not sure how we should word that. Can you, is there a particular wording that we should use so that we have it on record?
Just say that I hereby make a motion that we not continue this meeting and that we resolve it at this hearing today. You can just say so moved.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so that passes unanimously. So now we will be resolving it today, and now we can have a motion on the approval.
Okay. I move to approve with conditions the major site plan, conditional use permit, and sustainable bonus incentive program request to construct a high-intensity cold storage use at 2209 7th Avenue North, based upon the competent and substantial evidence provided in the staff report and in the testimony at the public meeting.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very
Everyone,
much.
thank you very much, everyone. Okay, so we're going back under new business to item A under new business, which is the consideration of an ordinance amending chapter 23 of the land development regulations related to the affordable housing workforce housing program. We'll give everybody a minute to clear out. See.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good night.
You as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Are we on A?
Yep, I think they're loading up their presentation now. As soon as their presentation is up, staff has the floor to proceed. So this is an.
We're just going to take a brief moment because we need to make sure that we have informed the full body so you can all vote. So we have a quorum.
Oh, and you have. And this one, just, this one, we are making a recommendation to approval. This has to go to the commission, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, the next two. Okay. Terry, while we're waiting, what's the situation with getting more empty seats filled up on here? What's the situation with getting empty seats filled on here? Because I know you scramble. If you just lose one of us, you're now in a scramble mode. Yeah. Okay, good. Because I know emergencies do come up, and if somebody has a scheduled thing and then anyone has an emergency and all these people fly in and.
Here we have five. Where's the threshold?
Right, and they have four for the threshold for quorum as well, so both of, but they have one more member, so they've got a better chance of making quorum. We lose one and we're on the edge. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I think isn't the city liable if they advertise, if they get that?
I mean, what's the advertisement? If it's something, it's not, but we do the advertising.
Just the advertising, you don't have to cover it unless there any other,
We do the mailings.
just the mailings, yeah. But if 20 people flying in, you're not covering flights for people.
So they're looking to fix that. You can put the line in and change.
It's probably bad.
Yeah, we're supposed to be a 7-member board, so we need 4 people. But the problem is we only have 5 people that are appointed currently. So it's like 2 people are missing every meeting or it even starts,
There's a note on the website soliciting people to be a member of a board.
Yeah, I know people have applied a while and. But
They're advertising, you cannot see that.
Okay.
I'm not worried after too.
Good evening. For the record, Scott Rodriguez with Planning, Zoning, and Historic Preservation. We do have a couple of ordinances that we're going to review. I'm going to go over them very, very briefly. The first one is ordinance 2526, consideration of amending chapter 23 related to affordable housing workforce housing program. Essentially, there was these amendments were requested by various entities within the city to allow to facilitate affordable housing. And the amendments will amend section 23.239 credits, and the amendments will allow projects to provide voluntary, affordable, or workforce housing to beyond many minimally required affordable units to request site-specific financial credits toward existing city fines, liens, or penalties on the property. This is a recommendation to the city commission to approve or to adopt. And staff is present for any questions.
I had one question. Under the fees, the type of fees that would be paid, I saw, the city fines, liens, code enforcement issues. There was something also about tree mitigation. Can you kind of clarify what is and what isn't included as part of that? Like, is that for past issues, or is that if they, as part of their development?
So the credits would apply if you that you could apply them to any code enforcement fines or liens that are in place, not administrative costs, to any tree penalties or violations of tree abuse or removal without a permit. And then the tree mitigation fees they could be related to the development of the property or something that had happened in the past on the property. But it's basically when you mitigate for tree replacement, it's a tree for tree plus usually, because oftentimes the tree you're replacing is much larger than the trees you can replace it with. And so what this provides is that you would replace with a tree for tree, but not be required to replace the plus. So if your tree was large enough that you would normally be required to plant 4 trees in place for that one, you would still only have to do the one.
Okay, and this would only apply to projects that were providing affordable housing under the workforce housing program.
Affordable housing over and above any affordable housing required by the code.
Required by the code, but not voluntarily contributed as part of Live Local, right? So if somebody came in with a Live Local application, but they didn't have a requirement to do so, they would still get.
They would
get
qualify.
credit for it,
Correct.
because that's a voluntary program, I think. Right. That's what I want to clarify.
Yeah.
Thank you.
William Waters, Sustainability Director. Live Local, as you know, requires that 40% of the units be affordable. We also have a requirement if you want to go to the 46 units an acre under Live Local, 6 units have to apply by our program. We have Live Local projects that are doing 100% affordable. They would qualify. If you apply, say, 47 units an acre of affordable, you would get 1 and you could be able to use the credit. But we've interpreted all along that the Live Local, what its parameters are or what we require. So you'd have to provide some affordable housing above and beyond what Live Local requires in order to take advantage of this credit.
Perfect.
And we can clarify that is required by the code or any other program.
Right, because it did say any city code, and because that's a state thing, I just wasn't sure if that was intentionally excluded, but yeah, you clarify. I think this is a good initiative. You got properties that are out there that have code enforcement fines, and you're encouraging them to be developed and providing kind of a fast track for more workforce and affordable housing to be built, or at least an additional incentive for that to happen. So I'm in favor of this. Any questions, gentlemen? Okay, could we have a motion?
Move to recommend the city commission to adopt most of the architects, then we can at least 35 dash
26?
75 dash 26. 26.
26.
Great, do we have a second?
Second.
Yes, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Okay, item B under new business is ordinance 2025-24, consideration of an ordinance amending multiple sections of chapter 23 land development regulations related to recovery residences.
Good evening again, Mr. Chair and members of the board. Scott Rodriguez with the city of Planning and Zoning. So this recommendation is to address recent legislation that was passed to provide information for recovery residences as described in the staff report, and that addresses the definition, a waiver process, the request for reasonable accommodation, And it will be adding the use of use tables. The staff is recommending approval, recommending that the city commission, you recommend to the city commission approval.
I noticed in the language of the ordinance that it said that it was adding it to, I thought it might have said all multifamily, but then in the table, it's excluding multifamily 7. And I agree with that, but I just want to make sure that I wasn't sure if that language in the ordinance might just need to be, because I think in the use table, doesn't it say permitted in 14 and up, MF 14 and up?
Those are the multifamily zoning districts. SFR is the
Sorry, no, there's SFR, there's the single family, 2 family, and then in the table, it had an MF7, which multifamily 7, it was in the.
We'll double check that because there wasn't any MF7.
I was kind of sorry, I
Okay,
hadn't seen
that
that
might be a
before, but
typo
I
in
just
the
saw
table.
that it was one of the columns in the table in the packet, and so I'm not sure where that came from, but again, this is one, I don't know, gentlemen, if you have any questions on this, if you had a chance to read through it, but it's essentially creating definitions, complying with state law, providing a process, providing separation distance, because you don't want a whole area of the city transforming into this use, and then at the same time providing their variance if somebody's outside of it. So I think it's well done, and I would support it. If we have no comments, would someone like to make a motion?
Okay. I move to recommend to the city commission to adopt the proposed LDR text amendments included in the ordinance 2025-24.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Nope. Motion passes unanimous. Okay, item C. This is the PZB 25-014-00013, a major site plan, conditional use permit, and sustainable bonus incentive request to construct high intensity. Sorry, I'm reading the wrong one. PZB 24-005-00003 and 24-014-00012, major site plan, conditional use permit, waiver, and variances to allow a street wall to encroach into the front and side street build to line and for the construction and expansion of the existing minor vehicle repair at 732 South Dixie Highway. Property is zoned mixed use Dixie Highway and has a mixed use east future land use designation.
Hello, my name is Karina Maldonado, the Senior Community Planner. I'll be presenting this project. As you mentioned, there's 4 different requests: the major site plan, conditional use permit, waiver, and variances. I do want to note that we have several inconsistencies in the staff report. After the fact, we would like to edit several portions of it. We also would like to alter our analysis in different portions that I will walk you through as we go through the presentation. But there will be several changes that we've determined today that we would like to request to be modified, and mainly because of the waiver and the waivers for street wall. We do not get many of those. So we'll go through that. So some background on the property: there is an existing building. It was constructed in 1967. Currently, there are 2 business licenses, one for discount tire and auto repair. They have had a minor auto repair use since 2007, or a business license since 2007, with a retail stock license that was added in 2008. And then a portion of the existing structure also houses Manny's Food Store, who's also had an active business license for retail stock since 2006. Currently, there are no code violations at the site, but this site has been subject to code violations in the past for outdoor storage of tires. I believe that is the main purpose of with this request is to house those tires. So the applicant is Keith Chambers. He's from KCA Design Group. He's here today. The application is for a major site plan to construct a two-story addition to the existing building. The addition with the first floor and second floor will total a little over 5,000 square feet, along with site improvements, including parking and landscaping. The use would be a conditional use permit for a minor vehicular service and repair use that exceeds 7,500 square feet. And it would represent an expansion of use for the existing mechanic that's there. Then the waivers for a street wall waiver to permit the construction of an alternative street wall in lieu of meeting the building's build-to line requirement. We advertised for 2 variances, which we no longer believe is valid, but it was to allow the proposed street wall in front of the front side street and build-to line areas. So here's a general aerial of the site. You can see there's an existing building. They have an existing parking lot. The expansion will serve the existing applicant that is there. So here is the proposed site plan. As I mentioned, the building was built in 1967. And as you can imagine, was a non-conforming structure. Currently in today's code, we require a 10-foot build-to line from the front property line facing South Dixie Highway and a 10-foot build-to line on the 8th Avenue South Street. So technically, there should be a structure to meet today's land development regulations at the bottom right corner, 10 feet from the side and front property line. So we have been working with the applicant for a while. We worked with him on other projects as well, where we have been discussing a street wall waiver to allow a street wall to be built at existing non-conforming sites in lieu of meeting the new expansion build-to line. That's where we thought they needed variances because the proposed street wall is about 3.5 feet from the front property line and 5 feet from the 8th Avenue South side property line, where it should be 10 feet. But we looked into this many times, and even today came to the final conclusion that a variance is not necessary. Because with the street wall waiver, the intent is you cannot increase the nonconformity. You can't make it worse. And with the street wall, it doesn't resolve the nonconformity, but it reduces the nonconformity. So it does meet the intent of the street wall requirement or street wall waiver requirements. And that's the portion of our staff report that we wanted to do a new analysis on and update because we mentioned that they would need a variance because they do not meet all of the street wall waiver criteria. But after the fact, we have determined that they do because they are not increasing a nonconformity. They are reducing it, and the nonconformity will remain. That was the main item here. That we would cancel the variance request and alter the street wall waiver analysis that it does not increase the nonconformity.
The street wall doesn't have to adhere to a minimum setback? Like that's not a variance or a waiver?
Initially, that's what we thought, is that it would need a variance to meet the build-to line requirement. But the build-to line requirement was not met already with the existing building, and it's not creating a new nonconformity.
Questions? I don't know if I'm trying to wrap my head around because that's a different, like, it made sense to me that you're doing it because in one case you're saying that there's an existing nonconformity because the building's too far back. But then you're saying that we're going to go past the line that's allowed and go way further out. And somehow that's the same non-conforming, so they don't need a variance. Because I'm not sure, like I'm trying to wrap my head around how that looks. And to me, like a building further back gives this street some room to breathe, whereas pulling a wall all the way front makes it, it just seems like a completely different thing to me, not like a continuation of an existing non-conforming issue. And so I would almost think that, like, what is it that that wall does? Why do we want that wall? Help me understand from an architectural, from a planning sector, why do we want that wall at all? And I
So
just,
it falls aligned with the build to requirement of 10 feet. We prefer a building to be at the 10 feet from the street on both street sides, not less, not more,
Right.
at the 10 feet. And what it does is activate that frontage and creates an engaging street
I get it at 10
area.
feet,
Mhm.
but if you can't do it at 10 feet, I don't understand how moving it to 3 feet works. I feel like moving it to 3 feet is worse than not having it. Because you're going to have this building streetscape, you have a build to line of 10 feet, and then all of a sudden you got a bump out that comes 7 feet out of that in order to create a wall that's costly and doesn't seem to do what you want in terms of keeping that 10-foot build to line. So why, what am I missing?
So we had considered, what if they don't do the wall? And the whole point of the wall is to provide an alternative, because the structure in the back, they're not able to put that where it needs to be in the front to expand it. Yes. And the wall is located where it's at, partly because if we move it back 10 feet, it's going to impact the required parking. So we're dealing with, the waiver criteria as it's already a non-conforming. The wall wouldn't, as Karina mentioned, it wouldn't increase the non-conformity, and it's an alternative.
But it's,
And I just want to point out that if the board decides that they're not in agreement with that, how we're reviewing this now, you can pursue the variances. It's still there. We're recommending that the waiver, the variances may not be necessary as it's proposed now.
I guess the real question that I have is, your building is set further back than you would want it. You want it to be at 10 feet. And that's a build to line, right? That's not a setback line, that's a build to. So the idea is to have some kind of conformity as you go down the street, that the buildings are all built at 10 feet. So if I had to choose between two non-conforming situations, one where the building is set back further and one where it comes all the way out to, 3 feet away from the street, or from the sidewalk, I guess, right? Because there's a sidewalk there, that's part of the right of way. So it comes out to 3 feet off of the sidewalk. That just feels like that's a very visually, to me, a much bigger non-conforming issue than just not having the wall. So can you tell me why, given that you don't want to put the wall at 10 feet, which I agree with, why does it make sense to then move that wall and create a new? Because now you have the building is non-conforming and the wall is non-conforming. Why just not put the wall there? Are they requesting the wall, or are we as a city requesting the wall? And if we're requesting it, how does that? I'm not an architect, but visually that doesn't make sense to me, that you're going to have this wall encroaching out into this 10-foot buffer, that you have all these buildings set back, and then you have this 7-foot encroachment. It feels weird when you walk down some of the streets in our downtown and you have a building that got a variance to have a lesser sidewalk, and all of a sudden that building bumps out and it narrows that space. And now we're doing it intentionally and at a cost to an applicant, and I just can't wrap my head around it. Help me. Have you seen it? Does it look good? Like, I did look at the rendering, but I didn't understand that, that issue of the variance. So.
Right. So, some history. We've been working with the architect since 2023 on a different property that is very similar, that never came to be. And that's where we initially started the street walk conversation because there is an existing nonconformity that we acknowledge that the site is constrained. And before the code language was drafted, we thought that this would be a good way to minimize impacts to the constrained site and visually improve the site as well, including additional. I see. Okay. So provides additional screening for like the existing use. Dan, I just want to clarify that the addition will be the rear of the property and the second story. To comply with the current land development regulations, that addition would have to meet the 10-foot build-to line, the front and the side. So it would be at the opposite corner of the property. So we acknowledge that this is a constrained site.
Sorry, back.
Yes.
The building that, so I understand that they're doing the addition and the addition is behind, but there's not a build-to line on the back of the property, right?
No, there's a regular setback.
Okay, so that building isn't, I understand that normally that addition would be required to meet it. But it's not in this case. But the wall also doesn't meet it.
The addition in the rear is meeting code. It's meeting the applicable LDRs and setbacks. It's the wall that's different.
If that wall wasn't there, do you believe that site plan would be less conforming and that wall reduces the non-conforming? I don't see that. I think that the wall, I can see how you could argue that it's not increasing it, but I can't see in any way, shape, or form that you're decreasing it. And I would actually argue that it is increasing it. I 100% think the building setback further than 10 feet is less non-conforming than a building that is encroaching into that 10 feet area. I feel the encroachment is more of a visual variance, more of a visual. I think you are increasing that. And so that's the thing that I just can't, I understand like that the wall might look pretty. I think the construction, I think the idea that you're mentioning for buildings where you build it at a 10-foot setback or 10-foot building totally makes sense. I think one already came before us that we approved to some extent that had this. And so I agree with that. But just to me, the worst sin is encroaching into that 10 feet, not having a building further back. And so because we have this problem with the buildings further back, we're now requiring them to build a wall that's out in the front where it shouldn't be anyway. And why it's like two wrongs don't make a right kind of thing. Now we have a building that's too far back and a wall that's too far forward. And I don't understand. Like, do you visually, like, we've got standards for design elements, we've got comprehensive, is this something that has been looked at and you feel like that will improve the aesthetics? Because you understand, everybody, that wall just sticking out an additional 7 feet where all the buildings are back at 10 feet, presumably, and then you get a wall that sticks out 7 feet past that. And if that's something that we're actually requiring, or was that the applicant wants that for privacy and screening and beautification?
So it was staff who recommended the street wall as a way to help reduce the existing non-conformity as far as the existing setback distance.
I think if you could do it at 10 feet, it totally makes sense to me. But I think putting that all the way out when you're coming down the street, that's going to stick out past everything else. And it just feels more non-conforming than less to me.
Right. Where it's proposed right now is technically a landscape buffer where they are proposing it to be placed. This is an elevation of how it looks. This is the previous one is the front, how you would see it from Dixie and 8th Ave. And then this would be the interior of it. When we looked at it, it appears more like a trellis than an actual wall. And behind it, there is parking. So we were also proposing a condition to require a half wall there to further screen the vehicles. And the applicant did know on the elevations that they would have a living vegetation wall on there. Since it is in what's technically the landscape buffer. And that was added as a condition of approval to also require that living vegetation, but this elevation would change based on how we condition that
Can you show
elevation to
the
look.
aerial view of the properties adjacent and around it? So those two buildings, I guess, are at the 10 foot, so this, so, or are those actually non-conforming as well, like the?
Those are probably non-conforming. And another item I wanted to mention that we condition is the rear technically has a 10-foot setback, but when it's adjacent to single-family residential zone properties, it requires a 15-foot setback. So we also these properties north of the existing site, I didn't look at their zoning analysis, but they're probably non-conforming. But the site plan that we reviewed as well, we also added a condition to require that building, the addition, meet the 15-foot setback, because right now it is being proposed at 10 foot.
And so that was another, I was
That
doing
was-
one at a time, but so that one, I have a couple concerns with, because don't you also have, if you consider that bay as kind of a parking spot, don't you have a back out requirement to an alley?
Yes.
That's more than 15 feet?
Yes, and it also includes, it's a 20-foot back out, including the alleyway.
Oh, it includes, the 20 foot includes the alley,
Right.
so a 15 foot setback gives you the 20 foot back out.
Right.
The drawing that you showed brings to mind queuing issues in terms of, this is, those back bays are for customer vehicles. So if a customer is waiting to come in to get their tire changed, are they sitting there blocking the alleyway, queuing for that spot?
Well, the
Or-
code is written to address queuing by requiring that 20-foot back out access, but
But
it doesn't.
They can't queue in the alley, right? The alley's not there. So you can't count that 20, I guess. Sir, if you'd like to, I don't know if you've been sworn in.
Oh, no.
No.
Yeah, please.
The applicant.
Do you swear and affirm the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Sure. State your name.
Okay. My name is Keith Chambers. I'm the president of KCA Design Group, the architectural firm. I'm also the president of KCA Construction, who's going to be building it. So it's a design build. Some of the issues that you were talking about, queuing, they won't allow customers to go back there. We actually had a space there that we were going to use for queuing for their purposes. In other words, they pull in, do it, and back it out and bring it around front, where the customer would then make sure they pay and before they give them the keys to leave.
Okay,
So
thank you. And then obviously you heard our conversation about that.
yeah,
As an architect.
the trellis is very attractive. I mean, if you ever get a chance to go to Boca Raton, it's the Publix down in on US 1, just south of Camino Real. They have a trellis there, and it's a very attractive type thing. It doesn't hinder people from walking by because there's columns spacing and out, and then the wall protects it, and then there's landscaping that blocks that too. So it doesn't give you the feeling that you're getting enclosed by it. The landscape, and a lot of times people like to go by and look at the landscape, and there are going to be lights on the outside, so it's kind of like a decorative to the degree, and I think it enhances the community.
Okay.
Okay.
So we'll continue with
Sorry.
the
Yeah, go ahead.
presentation.
Thank you.
This is the site plan. This is the landscape plan. Like I mentioned, they have a 5-foot perimeter buffer requirement. where they are proposing that the street wall will be located in that buffer area and will include living green vegetation. Here are the elevations. The west elevation. This is from the point of view of Dixie Highway, and the east is interior to the lot or the rear of the property. Here's a the north side and the south side. So we did change our analysis verbally from what you see in the staff report. Staff did find that in the staff report, staff did not find that it met the street wall waiver requirements, all of the criteria. We have since changed our viewpoints to meet all of the street wall waiver criterias, and that's not meeting the variance. Again, this is the street wall location highlighted in orange. Here's a enlarged visual of the street wall location. This is the street wall view from Dixie Highway. As I mentioned, we prefer a half wall versus the railing in the middle to further screen the vehicles behind it, the regular site parking. That's interior. This is the surrounding properties. This is where it kind of jumped at. On the north side, there's a motel, zone mixed use Dixie Highway. The south side, across from 8th Avenue South, also has a mixed use Dixie Highway zoning designation and consists of commercial and offices. East side is the single family residential. Currently, there are single family and 2-family residential uses. And on the west side, across of Dixie Highway, also mixed use Dixie Highway designation, and there is a place of worship. So, based on our updated analysis, we determined that it is consistent with the comprehensive plan, strategic plan, meets the intent of the major thoroughfare design guidelines, consistent with the city LDRs as condition. We will want to see a site plan application. If this were to be approved, we would want to see a site plan application afterwards to address the additional 5-foot setback in the rear, because it is adjacent to a residential zone property. Our updated analysis also indicates that it does meet all of the waiver criteria and a variance is not required. So different from the staff report, we are recommending that the board approve the major site plan, conditional use, and street wall waiver.
Subject to the conditions.
And it's subject to the conditions, yes. We do not have any changes to the proposed conditions of approval, mainly the analysis and the inconsistencies throughout the staff report, mainly portions that recommend approval and others that do not. There's several inconsistencies throughout that we would want to update.
So you said one of the conditions is an additional 5-foot setback off the alley, correct? And so they're going to have to come to you with a minor site plan change. Okay. The only thing that I would suggest, because I'm so on the fence, but if that wall really, for whatever reason, it's just sticking in my brain and I can't get rid of it, because to some extent we've got a lot of non-conforming properties on Dixie where the buildings are not built to the built-to line, where they're built further back. Those are, if you look up and down Dixie, you're going to find quite a bit of those. There are very few that I can think of that are built closer than 10 feet to the right of way. And so we're taking a non-conforming situation that exists for a lot of properties, and we're creating a brand new non-conforming situation. Now, granted, this isn't an actual wall and isn't an actual structure, And that's the thing that kind of makes me a little bit okay with it is it's trellis, but it just feels like it's a pretty substantial thing in terms of the feel as you're driving down through the street. And I guess I would just like to allow for staff to reconsider that when it comes back before minor site plan approval. And if you decide that, where my head is, if you guys look at it and you think about it and you drive around and you're like, you know what, it's probably better just because right now there's no landscaping there, right? It's all just kind of asphalt or concrete in front. So regardless, they're going to have to revise their parking lot, cut that area up, put in a landscape buffer. But the question is whether or not to just build that wall. And I would like to, I feel like you're qualified if I just gave you the discretion if you're able to.
The issue with the wall is because the current building is not constructed to the build to line. In order to do the addition to the property that they want, the addition would need to be at the build to line, which basically makes the entire property building and takes out all the parking, right? So for the building to be constructed as they're proposing with the addition to the rear the ability of the property, which is why the analysis has been that it doesn't increase the nonconformity. Either way, you're not meeting the build to line. You're getting closer,
but
you have to meet the intent is to try and meet the build to line, but you cannot allow the addition without at least attempting to meet the build to line.
Even though adding the addition is not increasing the nonconformity. The current issue is that it's got a build to line of 10 feet and it's currently built at 30 feet. And that's their non-conforming. And that's going to continue to be the non-conforming but you're saying you don't believe that they could get approved to do the addition without, because you would just be the same non-conforming issue would exist before and after, right? And what am I?
Yeah, with the current code, the requirements, any new addition will most likely either be a detached structure at the corner or because they would have to meet the build to line requirements on the side, the street side and the front. So
Even if you're okay. So even though they're not increasing the non-conforming, or you would say that is then that if they were to build on the back of the building, that is increasing the non-conformity, even though they're still the same amount of off on their setback. Could you bring up the site plan one more time? Sorry, guys. I know we've already had a long meeting, but this one just on that left hand. What if the wall was at the 10-foot build line, but it didn't go across the entire property? What if it was just at that corner where it came up, it just goes straight across and in the corner section, you go 10 feet, I understand the setback on 8th Avenue, and I don't really have as much concern over the setback on 8th Avenue because it's not Dixie Highway. Dixie Highway is, one of our thoroughfares. And so like if you just did that and then on the same thing on the left-hand side, you came off the existing building and just did whatever that is there, a 15-foot, 10-foot section, and you just didn't do it across where the parking spaces are. But because to me, I don't know, for some reason I don't get in my mind how creating a second problem fixes the first one. And it just doesn't. And I think the second problem potentially is worse than the first. So that's where my head is on this. I don't really, I think if we were to do less wall there, but because if you're saying that a wall of some sort is required, it doesn't have to go the whole length of the property, right? So if the wall was on the north side and the south side, and it was 15 feet on both of them, but it was at the right distance, it was 10 feet off. What do you think? I mean,
we would
do you understand as the architect for this project, do you understand what it is that I've got an issue with here? So we have a 10-foot build to line in the city.
Yes, I don't.
So they want everything to be at 10 feet.
Yes, sir.
But then they're saying that your wall's only going to be at 3 feet.
Yes, sir.
And to me, that change to go to 3 feet for structural wall, that where that nonconformity doesn't really exist in our city, to me, I don't like the idea of all of a sudden we're ignoring the 10-foot build to in order to go, like, we're overshooting the fix. We've got a problem where your building is too far back, but now we're saying we're going to put it 3 feet off the sidewalk. And again, it's not a building, but somehow we're calling it that. It's just,
It's a trellis, as we know, and then we have a half wall underneath it. We have lights on it, and it's more of a, you know, a concept to try, like I said before, we're trying to non-conformance, we're not trying to do, we're just trying to give them something that is I shouldn't say decorative, but it is to a point. I mean, a trellis is really nice if you ever look at one. We're going to make landscaping all the way around it and on top even. So it's going to be a nice feature for people driving down the road. It's not something they're going to say, oh my God, but it's there. So, and it's like they said, it's trying to comply with the non-conformance.
guys, I guess I mean, like, if staff feels like that this is going to look, in my mind, this is just going to look really weird and awkward and it's going to stand out. But I'm not an architect. That's not my. So I'm on the development side, and I would let architects and designers figure this one out. So I'm willing to hear, unless you guys have other comments or questions, whatever.
I mean, from my standpoint, if the city likes this and the architect and the builder has no problem with it, I don't have any heartburn over it. I've been trying to follow Dan here a little bit and do understand what he's saying when I look at the difference in the the 10 feet to the 3 feet and so forth like that. So I just don't know how, staff feels, architect feels it's fine. And we're going without a variance on this, right?
Right. Okay, so I guess I'm willing. I think I've wasted enough time. So if you guys want to make a motion,
So the motions are not in the staff report,
Yeah.
but I did bring them up on the PowerPoint. If you want to read off of that. And this does not include the variance. It only includes the major site plan, conditional use, and waiver.
I didn't.
Oh, sorry.
so these are the ones that he would want us to use. Yeah.
She's saying something.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
I move to approve with conditions the request for PZB project number 24-005-000003 and 24-014-000, which is 3 or 4. 1, 2, major site plan, conditional use permit and waiver based upon the competent substantial evidence provided in the staff report and in the testimony at the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
I'm going to vote nay, so we've got 3-1. Motion passes. Okay, any planning issues that we need to discuss? Seeing no planning issues and no one left for public comment. Department reports.
Yes, we do have a department report. Our friends with Chen Moore are online to provide that update. And I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Lance Lilly.
Hey, Scott, I can't share my screen. It says disabled.
We'll work it out.
All right, thank you. But in the meantime, good evening. I'm also joined by Nilsa Zacharias. I think she's still here. Once we get the PowerPoint up, I'd like to go briefly over the open space and recreation master plan that we've been working on. I'm sure you're all familiar with it. Oh, there she is. Great.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, board members, city staff.
Can you see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Let's see.
Again, thank you so much for making time for this presentation. I am Nilsa Zacharias, Director of Planning of Chen Moore & Associates, and Mr. Lance Lilly, Senior Planner with Chen Moore & Associates. This is with regard to the Open Space and Recreation Master Plan. Please, next slide. Just as a background, as you know, we started this project in January 2024. The City Commission approved the scope and budget for this Open Space and Recreation Master Plan. As you recall, this April 16, 2025, we conducted a joint meeting with PZB and HRPB boards. There was a workshop and we provided the status of this master plan. At the time, the boards provided input. We took it very serious, those inputs, and we updated the plan. Also, it was very important to receive comments from Community Sustainability and the Leisure Service Department. And today, we are presenting the final report to this board, and November 12th, we'll present it to the HRPB, and at the end, on December, we are expecting to present to the City Commission meeting to be adopted. And the adoption will be processed with a resolution. Next slide, please. As a background, in 2018, the City of Lake Worth Beach adopted the comprehensive plan and included a very important policy, which is 7113, that stated that the city shall encourage the preparation of a master plan for recreation and open space to assess existing facilities, future needs, and proposed programs. Next slide, please. The background. In general, as I mentioned, the City Commission approved to start this master plan. And the main goal was to listen to community input and feedback, assess current and future recreational needs, and provide a roadmap for future improvement to city recreational programming and facilities. This has been an amazing process. We gather very important input from the community, and this presentation will go through the type of events that we attended. And also we work very close and we listen very closely city staff. Next slide, please.
Yes, so thank you, Nilsa. So this master plan, this slide presents the outline of how the master plan and what it actually provides. First, it provides analysis of the city's demographics. Then it examines national and recreational trends. It also reviews the comprehensive plan as well as the city's land development regulations, the LDRs, and then evaluates the operations and the programming for the Department of Leisure Services, provides inventory of the open spaces and recreation facilities of the city. It assesses the city's level of service, and then it also demonstrates the conduct of inventory of the trees by the city-owned properties, also with the tree assessment of the findings and the canopy analysis. And then lastly, it talks about the funding options and recommendations through the process. As Nilsa mentioned, we had extensive public participation, but before you have extensive public participation, the biggest thing is how do you get the word out? So what we did was we actually had branding, and through this branding, we created a logo, we created a set of colors and logos and different things to show how we were going to do this open space and recreation master plan. So first, we started with the city website. We put this all over the city website just to spread awareness. We also had a heavy social media presence. And then we also created these posters, which you'll see Matt from our team posted at local businesses, as well as we had at the City Hall. We had it at the Department of Leisure Services, City Sustainability, as well as other events that we attended. It included QR codes, which were in Spanish, Haitian Creole, and English to get the vast demographics of Lake Worth Beach. And then we also had these little like small business card-esque flyers that we can give out to make it more accessible for residents. And then also we created a t-shirt with the branding, which was given to sustainability staff as well as leisure services staff, and also our staff that we have here. This slide just demonstrates a table of the various community engagement events that we hosted. It all started off with kickoff meeting, which was just an internal meeting with the city staff, and then it branched out to the street painting and kept going on until we had different various public engagement meetings with residents surrounding the parks, which I'll discuss in a little bit further. So this just shows the public engagement efforts. As I mentioned, it was an extensive public engagement effort. One of them, which we started off with, was the Street Painting Festival, which is on the left-hand side. We also went to the Back to School Bash. We had a field day event, which included families and kids that were attending at that particular event. We then transitioned to the NAPC meetings, which we hosted two of them with the NAPC. As I mentioned, the Back to School Bash and the Haitian Heritage event and the street painting event, which you'll see at the bottom as well. And through that process, the biggest portion of it was more so to get feedback on the survey that we had. We created a survey which had approximately 24 questions, and that survey was open from February 12th up until September the 9th of last year. And we had approximately 450 surveys, so 48 surveys, which were both in person as well as online. As I mentioned, that was spread through city hosted events, city website, and the flyers and business cards, which we just showed on the screen. And what the goal of it was to gather input on recreational programs as well as facilities, including Bryant Park and Northwest Park. This slide just demonstrates essentially how we tallied the results from some of the questions that we had. And some of the questions, for example, was what was your favorite picnic pavilion areas? What improvements you'd like to see? What were your preferred way to visit said parks? And through this process, we also engaged stakeholders and wanted to hear their feedback. So we had focus groups with youth groups, a similar provider in the community service groups, the library, NAPC, as I mentioned just a while ago, as well as interview with the city commissioners. And then we also conducted facility tours of the leisure services facilities to see what the conditions looked like and to get a better understanding of what might need to be updated or are approved. And then we also had other stakeholder focus groups, which included the Department of Leisure Services. We got to know the different departments that they have in leisure services, as well as we spoke with city leadership and we spoke with the finance department to figure out how some of these things may be financially feasible. Then our team also did a tree assessment and canopy analysis. We inventoried over 6,000 trees within the city, and these were city-owned properties as well as city managed or owned right-of-ways. And through this process, we did it from February until August, and these included about 50 city properties. And to get a further understanding of how the canopy analysis was done, we used this particular program, which is called iTree Canopy Program, and it gives you a wide variety of how the city canopy is actually provided for the city as a whole. This table at the bottom just mentions the trees based on their origin, whether they're native, non-native, invasive, or and it's two categories of invasive, category 1 or category 2, and then the number of species and also the number of trees. And And further on that, as I mentioned, we also assessed the parks and open spaces that the city has. So it's a total of 33 parks, which varied from neighborhood parks, community parks, and even greenways, which is demonstrated on the map on the right-hand side. Our team did several site visits of each park, as well as we took photos. Then we reviewed the amenities and the functionality of said parks. And through that process, we rated the parks or the amenities on a scale of 1 to 3, 1 being low, meaning that essentially it's not a very good amenities, that they might need to be repaired or updated relatively soon. And then 3 being excellent, meaning that they are in good condition or do not need any maintenance or update to those particular facilities. And this was through the NRPA, which is the National Recreation and Parks Association. And they have a little table that has the 3 pillars, which I will talk about here shortly. So this table or this photo just demonstrates the evaluations that we did for the parks. So this is the South Palm Park, and this just demonstrates what the type of park it is, the acreage, and then also the types of amenities. And then we also associated that to the map on the right-hand side. And then, as I mentioned, we had an amenities rating system, which in this particular case, we used South Palm Park as well. And it says that it's excellent and that it's low priority. So what we did was we looked at, for example, the playground. The playground was in good condition. The shoreline was a 2, and that was more so because of littering. And then everything else, for the most part, demonstrated a 3, with the exception of like a dog station and trash, which those things are easily able to be updated. But as I mentioned, we also use the NRPA 3 pillars, which talks about health and wellness, conservation, and then social equity. And that's a 1 through 5 scale, 1 being worst condition and 5 being best condition. As part of this exercise, we also did a design open house, which were with the properties that were surrounding the key parks that we were going to be designing. The first park was the Northwest Park, which I'll talk about here shortly. We had an open house, which was conducted on October the 28th of 2024, and that was at the Haitian Peniel Baptist Church. And then we also had a open house on November the 25th of last year, which was at the Compass LGBTQ community, which was essentially for the neighbors of Bryant Park. This event included an introduction of the project, so essentially what the project, why we're here, and then we had roundtables with the residents to brainstorm key questions. These key questions included, what do you like about said park? What are some challenges? How do you envision the improvements over the next few years? And then we had hands-on designs envisioning what they can see for that park within the next few years, and then open discussion and feedback. And you'll see photos here shortly. So first, this was the invitation flyer that we created. This invitation was for the members of Vernon Heights, Lake Cove, as well as Sunset Ridge. And this was for the Northwest Park design open house that we had. The flyers were created in English and in Spanish, and we actually hand delivered those to the residents of those neighborhoods, as well as we provided them to the NAPC member that was associated with it to get further spreading of the word. And then we had design open house, which, as I mentioned, we had those different segments, which was the introduction, and then we had the questions that were provided and hands-on exercises, which this just shows our team doing hands-on drawings with those members, as well as getting the feedback from the residents. And then we transitioned to Bryant Park. So it's the same thing as Northwest Park. In this particular instance, we provided this to the neighborhoods of Bryant Park as well as downtown Jewel. And it was provided in English and in Spanish, as I mentioned. And this just shows, again, a hands-on exercise that we conducted with those residents to get their feedback. And at the end of it, they were able to provide their feedback to everyone that was in the room to hear how different people see the park within the next few years. And through this process, we then created conceptual designs. So we took what the residents provided to us, and for example, for Northwest Park, we broke it up into 3 phases. Phase 1, Phase 2, and Phase 3. Phase 1 would be between the years of 0 to 5 years. Phase 2 would be the years of 6 to 10 years, and then Phase 3 would be more than that. And then for Bryant Park, it would only be for 1 phase because instead of breaking it up, it would strictly just be the one phase. So first I'll start off with the phase 1, which is the 0 to 5 years. This phase, you'll notice on this rendering, we have essentially that the existing Little League fields on the right-hand side will remain as is, but then also the Manzo field will remain as is. But we also created some playground areas with some sail shades, a splash park or a splash pad, a dog park, some restrooms. We also have some volleyball, pickleball, tennis courts, futsal, which is more so like soccer, multi-use fields, and then we had some fitness stations and picnic pavilions throughout this particular amenity, as well as we have a potential public-private partnership on the right-hand side, the top, I guess, top right, which would have like an active dog station or a dog park for residents that want to use that. And then we transition into the 5 to 10 year, which is the phase 2. And 5 to 10 year, you'll notice that there has been renovations to the Little League fields, which are on the right-hand side. Manzo Field remains as is. However, we've now added a community center with a courtyard. And then we also have included a potential boardwalk, which would be with the partnership of South Florida Water Management. And then we also have a connection area or service area in the part that's facing Carmine Lane. And then the last portion of this is essentially we furthered the designs to include more aquatics. So the aquatic facility, which would be the pool, as well as we'd have little cabanas and whatnot. And again, you'll notice that through the phases, Manzo Field eventually gets removed. And as Manzo Field gets removed, then we'd have additional parking that would eventually offset the Manzo Field. And the trails would remain, and the trails would transition throughout the park, but this essentially would become more of an active space for the residents of this neighborhood and also of the city. And then we transition here to Bryant Park. And Bryant Park essentially would be a renovation of majority of the park. And this would include a potential extension of the jetty / marina, which is, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but it's up here, with potential to have some type of food concessions that would be there. It would also have an update to the amphitheater that's there, potentially has some type of shale shades that would be there to provide some type of shading for residents that go for whatever type of event that might happen. An observation tower for or not an observation, but an observation area for the jetty. Also, we'd like to have some type of dog park, which would be to the southern portion of the facility. Shuffleboard, picnic pavilions, kayak launch, social swings, and other fitness areas that would be able for these residents to enjoy the facilities. Through this entire process, at the end of it, we have a considerations portion, and the considerations discusses several different things. From what we've heard from the residents, whether it be via survey or just in person or even from these boards, a lot of the things that were mentioned were, for one, safety, security, and accessibility. So what were some things that would want to be done through this particular initiative? It was to enhance safety measures, maybe get some more pocket parks, ensure that children can travel to sports programming, also examine the built and natural environment, have some type of strategies that would collaborate between city and developers, that new developments would incorporate some type of new open spaces. So maybe pocket areas or whatnot, or semi-private open spaces that could be allowed there. And then also adding some type of greenways and open space opportunities within neighborhoods. And then maybe also having some type of open space improvements or expansions. So adding a category to the open spaces that we have, which would just not only be parks or open spaces of that sort, but it would have a conservation area within the plan. And then also the importance of maintaining and expanding the existing green spaces that are allowed, and then also enhancement of Bryant Park. And then further utilizing the parks that are already there and expanding upon the programming. So reflecting what the demographics are and what the demographics will be in the future, respecting that there are going to be kids that might change and grow up. So we might need to adjust with the new trends that come in, whether that be pickleball or any other sports that come in. Think about those things in the future, and also opportunities for kids at the golf course. And then lastly, the facilities and the infrastructure. A lot of people discussed heavily that they'd like to have some type of aquatics, whether that be splash pads or the pool or different things like that. So explore the initiative of aquatics facilities or even more indoor spaces, and then potentially having a need for multi-use fields and additional parking for larger events. Additional considerations were more so on the technical level, and the technical level more so meaning the land development regulations. So maybe contemplate code language for percentages for semi-private or public open spaces with developments. Review the city's existing sustainable bonus incentives, and then also review the LDR definition for open spaces. Maybe the open space definition now would include private or semi-private or even public open spaces as part of that. And then also evaluating the impact fees and the park and recreation fees that are already in the city code, and potentially thinking about reflecting reasonable anticipated funding for that and expanding the parks and recreation impacts for non-residential rather than a strictly residential projects, since non-residential entities also make impacts onto parks and recreation facilities, and then incorporate employment into the impact fees as well. So in conclusion, our team has finalized the report, which you have today, for the Open Space and Recreation Master Plan. This report will be presented to this board as well as the HRPB next week, and then potentially or at some point to the City Commission. And the purpose of this proposed master plan is to provide a roadmap for future improvements for recreational program and facilities, and provide opportunities for future funding for the city. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you all. Any questions?
Any questions from my fellow board members? Nope. Thank you very much for the presentation. We really appreciate it, all the hard work.
Absolutely. Thank you for your assistance, and thank you for your feedback through the process.
Thanks a lot, Lance. Nielsa, good night.
Thank you.
Right. Okay. Any board member comments? Seeing none, meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.